Hey everyone, this is Adam Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Today I am joined by my friends and colleagues, Alex and Dana, to break down your horoscopes for the month of July. We're going to be focusing on Uranus's entrance into Gemini and giving you a feel of not only what it might mean for you this month, but also the entirety of the next 7 years while Uranus works its way through this new whole sign house in your birth chart. You can obviously listen to these anytime for your sun or your rising sign. We always recommend your rising because within the whole sign house system of Hellenistic astrology, that's going to correspond to the actual birth chart that you're working with, and therefore the accurate house transit that Uranus will be going through. So anyway, on that note, before we get into it, as always, remember to like and subscribe. I hope that this is a place for the daily spiritual practice of astrology. That's my vision for what this channel is. And if that's you out there listening to this, if you're not yet subscribed, please consider doing so. It really does help us grow. You can find transcripts of any of these daily talks on the website, which is nightlightastrology.com. When you're on the website, one promotion this month, obviously be sure that you check out our readings, need-based readings. We have different price points to make sure that no one's priced out of getting a reading with some of our staff and alumni. But otherwise, go to the events page, click on live talks. My upcoming webinar is happening for the month of July on July 10th. These are classes that I teach outside of any of my programs. They're totally unique, once monthly. You can hear talks, in-depth talks that I write. These are more deeply focused and researched topics for students of astrology. This one's on the 9th house. I'm going to tell you why this house is actually associated with some of our best karma in this lifetime. That comes from the Indian tradition. We'll talk about why that's the case, in addition to all the other topics of the 9th house and why they were ever assigned the 9th house in the first place. So you'll learn a lot in this one. If you can attend live, you will get the replay link. If you can't attend the live webinar, you get the audio video download. So be sure to sign up for that. Hope to see you there. All right, on that note, back for our final installment, Alex and Dana.
Hey, we're here.
Final time of being together. I'm really going to miss you guys. It has been a really amazing, well, in the case of Alex, we've been working together several years, but for Dana being on the show for the past year, I just want to say thank you first before we even get started. It's been really amazing to have you guys. You've added so much to the channel, so much lightness, so much heart, so much depth. I really love you guys and have loved working with you.
Oh my God, we love you too.
My friend. Same.
Love it. We've had so much fun. It's hard to believe that it's been like, it feels like it's just started. For me, anyway. I don't know about you, Alex. You've been around longer, but.
No, it does. I mean, I think we started like a couple of years ago, Adam, working together, and it's wild. Like, I don't know. It's been great, and thank you for giving us this platform too. It's as I was saying before we got on the call, like this is your channel, and you opening it up to us in this way and letting us come on here and just talk about something we love so much with people we love so much. It's just really fun. So thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The vision of, as you guys know, because you've been through my programs too, like the vision of Nightlight is to train a new generation of astrologers and also empower astrologers as they are on their journey of training and development. Not obviously, you guys, like many Nightlight students, train here. You've had teachers elsewhere. But for people who come through and Nightlight is like a substantive part of their educational experience, I want this to also be a place that has different outlets for continued development. The platform here, bringing in new co-hosts once yearly, and now kind of a part of the plan that I tested out with you guys and with Whitney and Alexandra, and just being like, can we do this? And yeah, it's been amazing. So I want to also mention before we get into horoscopes for the month of July that if you have enjoyed Alex and Dana's work, which I know a lot of you have, just really you're like, Dana is there. You like them more than me. That's great. All three of us, we all bring something great is the point. And also,
I'll take it. The Leo in me is going to take that.
yeah, totally. Well, the point is that I have invited Alex and Dana, as well as Alexandra and Whitney, as we have new co-hosts coming in, to be present, creating some bonus content for our weekends. So you're going to see Alex and Dana and Alexandra and Whitney creating some bonus content for weekend materials. I make content Monday through Fridays, as you all know. So this will also be a way to allow for outgoing hosts to have a full year of continued development using the platform to test out ideas, work new creative content, and provide the audience with familiar faces and fun content over the weekend when I'm not creating content on Saturdays and Sundays. So you will see some bonus material once or twice a month from Dana and Alex, Whitney and Alexandra throughout. Once they're done after this month, you'll see that content coming out August, September, October. You'll be seeing them around Nightlight for sure. I'm really excited for that.
We are too.
Yeah, totally. So on that note, let's just start with general thoughts on Uranus entering Gemini. Personally, obviously, there's a whole collective level of that conversation that Alexandra and Whitney and myself have had in the monthly overview. But let's start, like, what do you think this brings? Maybe even contrasting Uranus and Taurus with Uranus and Gemini for each of us personally. What kinds of things have you already been thinking about?
Well, I've not obviously lived through Uranus and Gemini, but I have spent 2 years living with a Gemini sun opposed by Uranus directly. So I've seen this very, very clearly, this type of energy. And it's quick, it's brilliant. It's I think Uranus is more comfortable in Gemini than it is in Taurus. I think we've all said that over the last 7 years in some way. Taurus just is so fixed, and then Uranus comes in and it feels like kind of like jackhammer everything. I think Uranus and Gemini may feel like the opposite happens really fast. Like all of a sudden we're off to the races. Like Uranus, I know we don't use outer planets as rulers here at Nightlight Astrology, but if I was going to give Uranus a sign of rulership, I'd give it to Gemini and not Aquarius. I think Uranus really is at home in Gemini. It's fast, it's spontaneous, it's erratic, for better or for worse. There's a sense of immediacy with, I think, Uranus and Gemini too. It's just like ideas happen very quickly, but they can also be forgotten just as fast. And I think Uranus going to Gemini too is, you can't, just like Saturn moving into Aries, you can't separate from Neptune right now. You can't really separate Uranus from Pluto, which will be trining Pluto for most of the rest of the decade in Aquarius. And when I think of that, I really think of like total change, total revolution, total shifts. Like, I was thinking when we were in Japan last fall, we took the bullet train from Tokyo to Osaka and Osaka back to Tokyo when we were traveling around the country. And that came into service in 1964, right in the Uranus-Pluto conjunction in Virgo. And there's something like that where it's just like a technological leap forward in some way that completely revolutionizes the way we think about something, or, like in the case of travel, like the way we travel or move around. It's not just like Uranus's erratic, well, let's do this, or let's do this, let's do this. Pluto is like, adds a sense to this of like, there's no middle ground. Like, I think 2030 is going to look so different because of this trine that we'll look back 5 years ago, like in 2025, and be like, it looks like another century. Like, these are really big leaps forward that I think we're heading towards.
Yeah.
Totally. I it's weird because I think with Uranus, it's really hard to predict because it is so new. Right. Whatever it's bringing in is so, like, we haven't even imagined it yet. And with Gemini, I definitely think about ideas, communication, transmissions. Like, there are going to be so many new ideas and we can't even imagine what they are because they are so revolutionary. I love that bullet train example. Like, I think that's such a great metaphor. I've been thinking too about, I think this is true in any sign with Uranus, but the idea of like not resisting. Like, do not resist. I think that might be the best approach maybe for this, is like, change is coming, and resisting it, I think is not going to be helpful. That's what I'm thinking about. We'll see though. We'll see.
Yeah. One of the ways that I've been thinking about the entrance of Uranus into Gemini has been in terms of a transition from earth to air, because I think at least in the next year, and specifically in the month of July, we're going to notice such a shift in how Uranus is behaving. And one of the, maybe the easiest ways of recognizing it, apart from the house topics we're going to look at in today's horoscopes, would be a shift from earth to air. Now, when I think about earth, I've been delving really deeply into ancient elemental theory. For the first time in many years, actually, I'm like going back to the elements. Like, oh, this is, I'm like ready for more Anyway, when we think about air and earth, they're a kind of opposite because we're talking about a masculine air sign, a feminine earth sign. But air seeks where there are ideas, let's say, an exchange of ideas. When those ideas become substantial or there's a kind of momentum, they typically will inform something physical. You know, like a technological revolution starts with a question like, how could we better grow crops? And eventually a tool is in your hand, you know. We've been going through 7 years worth of form and function changing in the sign of Taurus, maybe specifically with things like pleasure, beauty, and the, you know, embodied sensual reality. So maybe Venusian things a little bit in particular, but just generally speaking, Uranus in Taurus has been about the form, the function, evolving and changing, and in ways that have a fixity to them, meaning that it takes longer. And it's, I think Uranus in Taurus, as you guys were alluding to, dealing with that fixed earth, it's far more incremental and sort of stubborn and resistant to change in that kind of fixed earth way. Enters Gemini, and all of a sudden we're into a realm of fast moving, light, airy, abstract, conceptual, you know, mercurial space. And to me, that means we're moving from changing solid things, the form and function of material forms, into this renaissance, this rebirth, this rapid period of new ideas. We're not going to hit Uranus in an earth sign again for what, 21 more years or something? You know, it's like, it's a long time. But we are going to dip back into Taurus later this year. So I can't help but wonder if the exchange between earth and air right now this year isn't also going to be about, okay, here's this influx of new ideas. We're going to get a retrograde back into Taurus where those ideas have an ability to perhaps do some final shifting of form and function. Mm-hmm. So what are we opening ourselves up to on the realm of ideas, mind, invention, communication, thought, very inventive space that may have the capacity to actually affect forms and functionality of material things between now and, say, the end of the year?
And in ways, I think, too, I love that, Adam. I hadn't considered air and earth like that. It's a really cool way of thinking about it. I think to Dana's point also, like, we can't even imagine what that will be. Like the when Uranus pops into somewhere in your chart, like you can't even know what it's going to bring. I say this in readings all the time, like, well, it's going to be innovative and new, and I don't know, it's going to be something. It's going to be something different.
Something is going to happen.
Something is going to happen, and you never thought it would be that. So, but I think that this idea of making ideas tangible and having this opportunity this year is really, really important. Like, you get an idea, write it down. You get an idea to do something new, put it into implementation. Because that's one thing you could definitely see with Uranus and Gemini is just the idea factory goes, but they're gone as fast as they come in. Yep. And it's not, you don't have time to say like, well, that was really cool. Hang on, let me write that down so I remember it tomorrow when it's gone completely out of my head.
Yeah.
If I could add one more thing, I feel like the mercurial part is really important. The exchange, the clarification of ideas through being in groups and thinking about like the Declaration of Independence and like these revolutionary ideas becoming concrete through like a group of people talking. I feel like that might be important.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. And even just the process of what we call into question. Like I was talking about this recently on the channel, but during the 1940s when Uranus was in Gemini, we saw this wave of some of the most famous existentialist texts ever written. And those texts are, I always like to say, they're like the Western philosophical equivalent of Buddhism, insofar as they just kind of pull the rug out from underneath essentialist thinking. history is ultimately redemptive and messianic and Christian. Let's pull the rug out from underneath that. Everything underlying everything is pure being. What if there's nothing, right? It's that kind of like mercurial process of casting doubt, throwing things into sort of chaos, throwing them up in the air and sort of going, but what if none of those things? And I just feel like that sacred process of creativity and doubt actually go hand in hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
There can be a very creative process that doubt, ambiguity, questioning takes us on. So that's on my mind too.
Be fun, whatever it is.
I know. Well, that's the other thing, is that Uranus and Gemini certainly doesn't like to play by the rules. It's like very like, I'll play a game, but I won't play by rules, like
Yeah.
Someone said that recently, and I thought that was a great way of putting it. Anyway, let's get into horoscopes. Dina, you have Cardinal. Okay, good. So we're going to start with Aries. We'll work our way around the wheel. Let's hear what Uranus has to say. Someone recently applied for co-host spot. I thought you guys would like this. And they said, we're going to talk about the transit of Uranus. I guess David Bowie was born with Uranus in Gemini. And they said, so now from now on, we're going to just think about Uranus entering this new house in your chart as David Bowie entering that house.
I love that.
Wasn't that great? I thought that was so wonderful. So anyway, you can think of this as Uranus in your third, or you could think of it as David Bowie entering your third, either way.
Yeah,
right?
Let's dance.
Great idea. Okay, Dana's up with Aries, which, again, listen to this for your sun or rising, whatever flips your hair back. And I'm going to highlight the third house transit of Uranus in Gemini here.
Cool. Okay, Aries risings, the surface level things that we might think about: family dynamics changing, new family dynamics, specifically with siblings, with cousins. It could be about the siblings themselves. They could be undergoing some kind of rebirth, some kind of revolution. It could be a breakthrough in the dynamic with those people in your life, something kind of changing or erupting, some new insight, some new awareness about the people themselves or that dynamic. I also think about communication with the third house, new ideas coming through that you feel you need to get out. The thing that Alex was saying about writing things down, I feel like is especially important for Aries and Libra risings. We'll get to that later, but definitely for Aries risings, like I think this is a good time to be journaling on a regular basis, because you are going to be getting ideas. And probably because we're talking about the third house, these like new insights and revelations, they're going to be coming through like your daily stuff, like going to get coffee somewhere and you see a sign on the wall that makes you think about something new, and now you've got this brand new idea. It may seem, I'm thinking about everyday magic, like that phrase just kind of popped into my mind. Like as you're going about your day, you're going to be seeing things in a new way and kind of helping you kind of deepen your awareness, your everything, right? It's just going to be giving you some new ideas. So be paying attention, right, as you're going about your day. This could be about moving. I know we might say that more about the fourth house, but your daily environment may change in some way, whether that's moving or like a different job or a new commute or anything at all that might change the kind of daily comings and goings. You might also be realizing the way that you're moving about your life or the way that you've been communicating. There's something kind of stuck or like confining about it. I think the thing about Uranus is in order to get to that freedom, you have to first feel like maybe a little confined. Like there might be something where you're like, I'm feeling a little stuck. Let me break through. And then you go about that breakthrough. So if you're starting to feel like, God, there's something I need to say, like, but I'm kind of afraid to say it, or I'm having a hard time like getting the words down, I think this is Uranus coming through to kind of help you get clear on that and help you break through and get that new level of awareness. So again, I think journaling is really important. And I think paying attention to the little signs, signals, synchronicities in your local environment, just letting them speak to you.
I love that. I think that, also in Mercury's bound here, in Mercury's sign, one of the things that was interesting about Gemini is it can look like they're contrarian when they're actually exploring an opposite. So it can look like I'm exploring, you know, it looks like they're kind of negating what you're saying, but they're actually just thinking about, they can't help but think about the opposite of what you just said. And I wonder too about, like, you know, in your everyday, there may be a call to be contrary to something. The things that surround you every day, like, well, I actually want to do it completely opposite. I don't want these surroundings anymore, like you were saying, Dan. Or I want to be. I've been agreeable in a type of relationship I don't want to be agreeable in anymore, or something like that. You know, with Aries on the ascendant, I think it may exacerbate or push those tendencies of sort of againstness sometimes. So that'd be something to look for. And but also, you know, considering what I'm really thinking about a lot with Uranus too is, and I say this with clients all the time, what is the revolution for that sign? So sometimes it's like for an Aries rising, the revolution in the third house may be something about not needing to be against, even with that idea being like, I can have contrast with something. I can consider its opposite, but that doesn't mean I have to push back against it. It just means that I'm considering multiple points of view or two diverging points of view I hadn't considered before. And I mean, maybe you're the new existentialist author of the century. Maybe you're going to pull the rug up, man, with your next new book. You know, you could see that with the third house. I mean, if you're a writer or you like to write, I mean, maybe we've all seen, you know, plenty of writers and people like to write with strong third house placement. So I could definitely see some sort of like innovative communication writing book type of thing coming up from this too.
Yeah. Love that. I would add, as you guys know, this year I'm teaching a masterclass series on the Indian philosophical background of the houses. So this third house has a relationship to desire and to anything that we learn or put a lot of effort into, a lot of practice that goes into something that we don't yet have but desire to have, usually a skill, an ability, and there's usually a connection to self-expression here as well. So I think, oh, Aries, what's the new tool? What's the new form of self-expression? What's the new subject or skill that you're suddenly very excited to learn that is maybe somehow Uranian too? I wouldn't be surprised to see a bunch of Aries folks learning astrology, for example. But it could be anything. It could be some new subject that's got your mind on fire. That's what comes to my mind. All right, let's move to Taurus. I get to receive my horoscope from Alex. Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure. So I think that this transit will have felt much easier with Uranus having moved through your first house. You've had, you know, Taurus needs time to acclimate to the change, and Uranus is not often subtle or slow change. But I think Taurus has also influenced Uranus too. Taurus has also slowed Uranus's roll a little bit. And I think that now Uranus moving into your second house, the big theme I keep thinking of here is that you are safe when the ways you are supported and the ways you bring in resources, yes, that also includes money, change, or they innovate, or they're different in some way. When you bring in new avenues of income, or they come in from a different place, or that there's a way where you just kind of want to throw it all over and try something completely new. I think one of the things for Taurus risings particularly can be this sense of like, I've done it this way for a long time. It has always worked this way. But then you might have Uranus moving into the second house being like, yeah, but the way you're resourcing yourself needs some shift and change. And there's something really interesting, I think, about considering the revolution here. You know, for Taurus rising, it might be like, I'm safe when other avenues open up. I'm okay. It's okay to bring those in. It's okay to innovate with them. It's okay to not completely know exactly how it's all going to turn out, because God knows Uranus doesn't always. Here's the idea, man. Now run with it. I don't know what's going to happen. And what just kept coming up for me was that sort of Taurus idea of like, you are still stable. You are still okay. It doesn't mean that because things get sort of electrified here in, you know, whatever way, that takes away that stability.
Love that.
You know, it's weird to think about Uranus as like an integrative energy. Like I would not call it that really, but thinking about it going from the first to the second, it's kind of giving me that vibe of like, you just did all of this 7 years of evolving in your identity. And now there's an evolution in your resources, but also I think about your own talents and like what you want to do with your resources. And now that you've got this, I don't know if I want to use the word evolved identity, because it's not necessarily like we're just ascending and it's getting better and better, but it's different. You know, there's been an opening up in how you see yourself and how you present yourself to the world. And now what you do with what you know about yourself is necessarily changing too. So it feels almost like an application of the Uranus and Taurus time with now, okay, well, what do I want to do with that?
Love that. I feel as a, Taurus rising, I am probably the least, I'm probably the least appropriate person to talk about a transit that is always unpredictable, right? It's coming into my own chart. So it's like, I feel like it's hardest for me to form delineations about upcoming transits for everyone when I have this really like a lot of excitement about, well, what's it going to bring in my own chart? But one thing that I can say for sure is that what Indian astrologers said about the second house is that it's an Artha house, which means fundamentally it's related to our concerns over material security at the most basic level. And then secondarily, what kinds of resources do we have that facilitate happiness, ease, and comfort? Uranus, to me, in this house could suggest a revolution in terms of our values, because the second house isn't really a house of values as much as it is the values that shape what we determine we need or want to feel secure and then comfortable, or even some level of pleasure. So, for example, if I were completely single, didn't have kids, a wife, I could see Uranus entering a second house and being like, you know what? I don't need anything. I'm going to become nomadic, right? like what we need could go through such a revolution. I don't see my life getting radically simpler, having to put kids through school, and like I'm not going to suddenly live in like an RV and go across the country or something. But I could see something like that happening for Tauruses, where what we think we need gets different. The ideas behind what we think we need for both security, comfort, ease, happiness, materially speaking, goes through a real shift because our values have changed. This could be a freeing up in a sense. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, for someone like myself who owns and manages like a business with my wife, I could see this being about inventing new products, a very inventive energy for like business owners, or, like, for example, I happen to know Ashley wants to get back into making herbal products, which is something she did when we had our yoga studio. Well, that would involve a process of, you have to have a certain kind of kitchen, there's a code, all of these codes. So like, what would the shift of Uranus entering the second house look like? Maybe her office is right next door to mine out this door. Maybe we're redoing the kitchen out in that room so that she can make herbal products again. I could see something that doesn't necessarily mean, oh, suddenly your values are completely different, but rather there's some inventiveness entering the space of what you make, how you work, what you sell, what you buy, what you consume, that is, maybe innovative or different in some way like that. I wouldn't be surprised for Tauruses seeing that trine to Pluto, though, in the 10th, if this isn't about career and business reimagining or revisioning somehow. Yeah. All right, let's go on to Gemini rising. So one thing I can say as a Taurus who just had Uranus in my first house for 7 years is that I think that Uranus in the first house is fantastic. I will say that like the journey of Uranus through like there's not a planet that's maybe better suited to the topic of individuation and awakening radical authenticity within oneself than Uranus in the first. The past 7 years, obviously, for me, have been quite a journey, joining a religious group, getting a name, leaving the religious group, going back to my name, completely transforming my body, et cetera. So I will tell Geminis, after having Uranus in your 12th house for 7 years, it's like whatever's been gestating in a more unconscious space, welcome to a rapid period of birthing. This, and over 7 years, it might feel like, well, that's a long time to be birthing something, but past 7 years for me, I feel like I have been every year realizing more of who I really am. And I'll never forget, there was a point along the way where I realized I could no longer talk about political or mundane events using astrology on my YouTube channel. And at first, there was a fair number of people in the audience who said, well, if you're not with us, you're against us, kind of thing. If you're not talking about these things, then you're not worth listening to, and all of that. And I, especially as a Taurus, I'm like, oh, I don't want to offend anyone. I'm a Venus-ruled person. But it became really important to me to sort of go, I don't care what you think. Yeah. Not that I don't care about you, not that I want to antagonize you either, but I have to care about what I think, what I feel, what's real to me. I don't think Geminis have a particularly hard time being true to oneself. They're very independent-minded people, I think, in general, in Gemini risings. But this will take it to a whole nother level. It may have you really reshaping and relooking at your own thoughts, self-concept, and being daring with where you go on the journey of selfhood. So I'll leave it there. What do you guys think?
The question, who do you think you are, keeps popping in, but not in like a menacing way. Like, I think that this is going to bring in opportunities where you get to expand your idea of who you think you are. So don't be surprised if you find yourself in new situations, new roles, new identities. And I think it's easy to talk about Uranus and think, oh, that sounds really exciting. It is exciting. But I also think, like, don't shy away from situations that you feel really out of your element in, because that's where this is going to come through. Like, you're probably going to feel a little uncomfortable in this because your whole concept of who you are is expanding. So you're going to be in new, unfamiliar territory. And obviously, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but just to say, like, if you want something new, new requires different. New requires different. So don't be afraid to be different. And that's, I think, for me anyway, part of the takeaway of what you just said about your channel, like going in a different direction, not being afraid to be different and trusting your instincts. So I think it's really exciting, and don't be scared of new territory, Gemini risings.
Solid.
Yeah, and building off of that, Dana, too, I think, like, don't be scared if you don't know who you are for like this first couple of rounds, like, I think that, like, there's this sense of Uranus is so unexpected sometimes that you have to, like, I think one of the ways we form our identity, and at least this has been true for me, is we have to play off of the opposite, which Gemini does so well. So, like in our earlier lives, we'll have a series of relationships that may not work out, but they build us to knowing what we do want. We may have, like, we might try a whole bunch of things that are like, that's not really who I am, but it actually strengthens that sense of who we internally are and naturally are. And that sense of self-acceptance, I think, comes from the interplay of light and dark, which Gemini is made for. It's this sense of, well, I tried this. Well, that didn't work, but let me try this. Well, that didn't work. Let me try this. And being in, I love that, Dana, the discomfort can sometimes be in, but I'm feel like I'm just playing a tennis game back and forth. But there's a refining process that's going on with that. In other words, something's being forged from that constant opposition. And I think it could just be really fun. Like, sometimes it's really fun to just explore, like, a whole other side of yourself that you never knew was there. You hear that, like, actors will say that all the time. They really love playing roles that are very contrary to their personality because they just get to explore, what would it be like to be this type of person? What would it be like to be in this type of situation? And so I think it could also have an element of, like, play and fun to it too.
Yes.
Yeah. Personal breakthroughs look so different from person to person. A personal breakthrough with Uranus in the first house can mean that, guess what? You are going to come into recovery and sobriety. You're free from your demons. Like that, a breakthrough like that can happen. But it could also be a breakthrough in terms of suddenly you're going to have the confidence to publish your podcast, and you're going to see it actually gain momentum and traction and some success. Like Uranus, breakthroughs look different for each Gemini rising. What that breakthrough is, what it means, and how Uranus is sort of bearing the light within your sense of personhood is going to look and feel so unique.
Yeah. Just like
all right.
I was saying, Adam, that idea of like, what's the revolution look like for you?
Yes.
Yeah. Same type of thing. Exact same. Yeah. I love that.
That is the question. All right. Cancer rising. 12th house.
Okay. I kind of love this. Said no one ever maybe about Uranus in the 12th house, but I really do kind of love this. So first of all, Cancer risings, obviously this is not going to be going on the whole time Uranus is in Gemini, but Jupiter's in your first house right now. This feels like big healing energy to me. It feels like an awareness of how I get in my own way, right? An awareness of the patterns that are underneath the decisions I'm making that I had no idea. Where like the great and powerful Oz that's pulling the levers behind the curtain. You now get it. And I think especially in this first year while Jupiter's in Gemini, it's like just mind-blowing awareness coming through. The 12th house doesn't have to be scary. And really, I think when I think about Uranus and Gemini in the 12th, it just feels like this huge opening. I might have said this before on the channel, and obviously this wasn't Uranus and Gemini, but I just finished a 12th house perfection year. And I was really surprised about how it showed up because I really expected it to be like me in hermit mode, like me hiding and no one noticing me and stuff. But I ended up becoming the co-host here on this channel. And I was actually more visible than I ever was. But guess what that did? It helped me understand where I stopped myself. Because guess what? I was scared shitless and I felt like a huge imposter. And I got to deal with all of that in my 12th house perfection year. So I think about that for Cancer risings, that you are going to put the pieces together in a way that you just were not able to before. And that mercurial ability to articulate is going to be very, very helpful for you.
My God, I love that so much. I want to bottle that up and give it to every Cancer rising. That's amazing. Yeah. I could speak from just on what you're saying, Danny, because I thought that was just so awesome. I have not had Uranus in the 12th house, but I definitely had Uranus opposing my moon, which is the ruler of my 12th house. And that was when I first started going to therapy, and I went to both of my therapists were great, but my first therapist was very like incisive and like knew how to say the right thing at the exact right time. And there were a couple times where like he said something to me and I literally went like back in my chair. Like I was like, like that's crazy. Because it was like illuminating something that somehow I thought I knew was there, but I couldn't articulate, and somehow I wouldn't have been able to see it without exactly the right spark to allow me to see it and not be super defensive and push it away. And I think that this is an exciting transit for those types of ideas that can like, when you jack open the subconscious in a healthy way, it can revolutionize your life without you even lifting a finger. It's just the matter of the energy shifting and the resonance changing, and all of a sudden life looks really different. It's the beginning of a long journey of that, but I think really interesting and fun beginning to it now.
When Prometheus enters the 12th house, what happens? And I think two things. One, if there are unexplored, unexamined, unconscious, self-destructive elements of the psyche, Uranus sort of grants them this kind of power that may initially create a little bit of mayhem, but also serves to expose them. It brings a light into dark place. Like if I had to put it this way, it's sort of like Uranus gives all the demons a little torch. And initially with that torch, they run around and set things on fire. But then in the process, it becomes so clear who they are, what they are, how they're destroying things, that it becomes very easy to exorcise them. And I that's a little like, my imagination is so dark sometimes, so I just apologize.
I just keep thinking gremlins, Adam. All I can see is gremlins in my
gremlins, demons, right? Yeah. On the other hand, let's say that there are fears, inadequacies, things you avoid. Uranus can bring a light to those things and set them free. Oh, actually, here's some confidence, like Dana was talking about. Oh, actually, here's that part of you that, oh, you don't think you're let's say you're a mother, and you're very maternal, but you get a little insecure when people start having really dazzling intellectual conversations because you're really an emoter, a caregiver, a nurturer, but maybe you don't feel like your intellectual side is as bright or shiny. Well, here's an opportunity, and you're going to go back to school, or you're going to develop some skills or abilities or whatever. You're going to suddenly realize that there is a part of you that's really intelligent and dazzling, and you're going to cultivate it or release it somehow, even though at the start of this transit, you may not think you're very smart, So I think there's a whole side of the 12th house where it's not bad stuff that undermines us. It's things that we have cast aside. And then it's Uranus says, how about we free those things up? Give them some space. Okay, let's move on to Leos. And Alex, you're going to give yourself your own reading.
As an astrologer, you do that every day. Let me give myself a reading and terrify myself.
Right,
and then take it to a friend so they'll calm me down.
Yeah.
Fellow Leo risings, I am so excited for the characters that we're going to meet over the next 7 years. I just can't wait. I mean, we're going to meet some really fun, interesting, quirky, amazing people you can't even imagine yet. The 11th house, I think of supports for our visions in the world and people who support that vision and benefactors coming in who just get us out of the box. They help us think differently. I recently worked with a business coach who really was very Uranian in a lot of ways, but is really good for me because I have that Saturn square in my sun. So I just get very fixed. This broke me open. I was like, wow, I could do that. I never thought I could do that. I never could do it this way. I never thought I could do it that way. And I think that there's an abundance of people coming who can help us as being ruled by a fixed sign, get a little out of our sort of set routines and feel invigorated by how we can shine into the world and how we can be supported. And I think that, it may be about also just like, I'm trying to think how to say this, for Leo representing the king or the queen, a good leader has an abundance of opinions around them. They have a council of opposing opinions around them. I think of Abraham Lincoln in the what was the book? The Team of Rivals. And sometimes it's good to have contrasting opinions too. To have someone say people who have one way of looking at something and people have another way of looking at something, and we begin to synthesize that together. But I think just like a really fun cast of characters coming into our lives who can really support us. It may feel like existing groups feel more unstable, or shift or change suddenly, or existing networks suddenly get sort of reconfigured in some sort of way. But I'm pretty excited for this one.
Yeah. I love what you said about the business coach. That's what I'm thinking about, that idea of there's so much more available for you. Realizing that I think where you're headed or where you're wanting to go, Leo risings, will change only because you're going to realize there's so much more available to you than you thought. And you might understand that through, like Alex was saying, the people who are coming into your life, the communities you surround yourself with, it's a good time to be around people, and it's a good time to be in conversation. I would say that for everybody, actually, given we're talking about Gemini, but definitely for Leo risings, it's a good time to find good role models too. Even if they're people that are doing something that you're like, oh, I could never do that, or that's not really something I think I want to do. Maybe it is, and you don't know that yet. It's a good time to explore new avenues and to talk with people who you're intrigued by, even if you feel like you have nothing in common.
Dana, that is literally happening to me right as we're speaking. So preview, literally. Yeah.
I love that. I'm thinking about the 11th from the comma perspective of Indian astrology. This is a house where our aspirations, wishes, hopes, dreams, desires, and the happiness that we envision connected to the realization of those aspirations or dreams are connected, as well as the actual realization or experience of the happiness that comes with fulfilled dreams. Those were all associated psychologies of the 11th house. So for Leos, I wonder, first of all, it's likely that the Promethean torchbearer is going to bring new hopes, visions, dreams, aspirations, or even a process of starting to open ourselves, to new visions of what the future might look like. Professional and social dynamics are in the 11th house. So does that mean new visions of career, new visions of social harmonization or happiness? But Uranus is going to bring this experimenting, creative originality into the 11th house. And that probably means you're going to be really thinking about brand new things and brand new people that you envision bringing happiness, bringing fulfillment. So that's exciting, because I remember when Uranus entered my 11th house in the sign of Pisces. This was a long time ago now, 14 years ago, right? But I guess it would be 21 when it entered, right? During that 7-year process, for me in the 11th house, I very gradually, in the first couple of years of Uranus and Pisces in my 11th, moved off from my dreams and ambitions to become an English teacher, and instead start getting interested in astrology, writing for a psychedelic online publication in Reality Sandwich, publishing a book, getting into astrology, the view of what happiness could actually look like. And what I thought my dreams and aspirations were so radically reoriented. So that's exciting, because it's kind of like when you're a kid, it's like dare to dream. We always tell kids, like, just dream, When Uranus comes into the 11th, I feel like it's very childlike in the way that it says there are new things that are like new possibilities you've never considered, and they are going to be attainable. You're going to get there in this 7 years.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, bring it on.
Yeah, let's have so much to be excited about. Okay, let's Virgo rising. We see Uranus into the 10th house. So an Arta house, which is ultimately about material security, and then working up from security to comfort, ease, and pleasure with respect to what we have, what we own, what we possess, the forms and tangible things. But in the 10th house, it's the least tangible, because that sense of security and realized happiness is embodied in how you're known and seen publicly, what skills you have, your vocation, the success. Some of that success is maybe quantifiable. How much money do I make? Or, how many clients do I have? Or how many, if it's YouTube, how many subscribers or whatever. But a lot of it is psychological. How good do I feel about what I'm doing? And does it provide me not only with a material level of success, but some sense of being authentic? This is the conversation typically between the 10th and the 1st, Dharma and Arta, right? Well, there's no planet that wants to push that conflict between individual authenticity and work in the world and success in the world more than Uranus. Uranus in the 10th is saying, well, it doesn't matter if it's not authentic. It doesn't matter if it doesn't feel original. It doesn't matter if you feel stuck. It doesn't matter how well you're doing if it doesn't feel, like if Prometheus doesn't feel like he's a part of what you're doing, that fire of something higher that's got your spirit lit up inside, well, then you'll be moving away from it. And new things, a revolution with respect to career will be established. Some of that may also be about, well, I don't need X, Y, or Z accolades. I just want to do this because it feels authentic. But it may also be about achieving accolades, but in a different way, or for a different reason, or for a different purpose. Revolution in the career is a broad way of putting it, but I think it really has to do with where we see ourselves and our work in the world meaningfully coinciding.
I love that. You reminded me, and I would be curious. I'll need to look back at this because I think I might have had a significant Uranus transit going on when this was happening. 2013, 2014? Where would it have been? Not Pisces.
Aries.
I moved to San Diego with my then fiance. So, okay. But anyway.
That's your 7th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
there you go. Yeah, there you go.
So but part of it too was I had just finished my first year of teaching and I was like, I don't like this. Maybe I want to do sales. And I just tried something totally different and totally new. And it reminded me of what you were saying just now, Adam, about like, does who I am align with who I am in the world? Who I am inside, does it align with who I am in the world? Because I did take a sales job and I absolutely hated it. And the reason I hated it is because I was working for a for-profit university and we were basically selling college, right? And I was working in the education department. So I was like selling college to people who wanted to be teachers. And frankly, these for-profit colleges are very predatory. So it was very antithetical to my values, which I don't think we would necessarily call values a 10th house thing, but I do feel like there might be that kind of conflict, like that kind of situation may come in for Virgo risings where you're like, what aligns, what doesn't? This doesn't feel good anymore. It feels, and again, you know, we wouldn't think about constriction with Uranus, but there is some situation that needs to come in that prompts the need for freedom.
Yeah.
And so there's something about the role, the public role that doesn't feel great maybe. And that prompts that inner exploration, that critiquing that we keep talking about, the Mercurial Gemini critiquing component, that prompts you to break free and try something new and get a little experimental with who you are out in the world.
Yeah.
You know, as you guys are talking about this, I'm thinking about it a lot. You know, one of the things Virgos really demand of themselves, sometimes to a fault and sometimes of others, is this sort of this sense of integrity. That it has to follow, it has to feel right, it has to be precise, it has to follow a sort of sense of things being correct. And when Uranus goes into your 10th house, I think sometimes it's like this idea of like, is what I'm doing really in integrity with who I am? Like, if I'm really thinking about it, is it integrity with like what I believe to be true? And I'm reflecting when Uranus went into my 10th house in 2018. I had a lot of reflections about the type of yoga I wanted to teach. I'm like, I don't think this type of yoga is what I want to do anymore. It's just not me. It's not who I am naturally, and it doesn't align with my sense of who I am. And I think that there might be something really interesting to explore here around, like, Virgo, again, I think always gets pigeonholed in this sort of like the obsessive perfectionist, but it's a mutable sign. This is a mutable sign that Uranus is moving into. There's adaptability here. And I think when Virgos really feel aligned with that sense of correctness, whatever it means to them, there's a lot of freedom and success that can come from that. So I think this might just be, like you guys said, like a realignment of the things that don't feel like that.
Yeah. Fascinating. Virgos, we move on to Libras next with Uranus entering the 9th.
Okay, Libra risings. I'm obsessed with this.
You guys are reading for yourselves this month. It's great.
Yes. And I've done so much thinking about this because I have Mars at 0 Gemini and Jupiter at 1 Gemini. So I'm like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Okay. So first of all, like a whole new paradigm, brand new paradigm, like getting blown up from the ground up, a whole new way of seeing the world. This is a like, I'm into weird shit now kind of transit. Like, we're learning about astrology. We're learning about esoteric stuff. We're getting into magic, like all kinds of new learning. And it doesn't new learning in general, but there's a lot of learning going on here. And there's probably an urge to talk about it, an urge to share what you're learning, and to, like when I was doing notes for this talk, the phrase "go tell it on the mountain," like you want to go out and tell everybody, like you feel like people need to know. It's got a proselytizing energy almost, which maybe would be like taking it too far. We don't want to like pressure anybody, but yeah, there's a need to learn deeply and share what you're learning because it is profoundly changing you in the way that you see and conceptualize reality even. This could be traveling, obviously, like you could be going to new places, and that could be really redefining the paradigms that you have and helping you see the world in a new way, because you're able to, it's like when you study anthropology, you know, it gives you a new understanding of the world because you see these other ways of looking at the world that you never knew before. So there's some kind of internalizing of these new ideas, having something to say. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to completely change everything. Not to be too much about it, but I really do.
I think all the Libra risings are going to enroll in Nightlight Astrology year 1.
Yes.
Yes.
They're all coming for you, Adam.
All right. Let's go.
It has that feeling, you know, it's like you start to learn some sort of fun, new belief, philosophy, science-y type thing, you know, especially trining Pluto, which will be down in your fifth house. There is something to me about, like, you know, I always wish for Libras, and maybe it's my Libra moon and something I've had to work with a lot with it, is you bringing out your own individual what I want without taking a poll on Instagram first, you know, without checking like with the peanut gallery, with the committee. And I feel like this is a transit where it's just like, well, what fulfills me on a creative level, and what are my beliefs around that? And there's a total revolution. It's like a bullet train revolution happening around this for you guys, which is like, you know, a sense of like completely changing that. And very, you know, by 2030, when this transit of the Uranus and Pluto really begins to wind down, there's a sense here of like, wow, I came to understand a primally deep space within me where my creativity flows from, and I'm reordering my beliefs around it. And to hell with what anybody thinks. You know, I wouldn't say that for every sign, but for Libras, I think that can be, sometimes that can be healthy. Like, you don't like it? That's cool. I'm going to do this because it really feels authentically resonant with me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I wonder about questioning inherited beliefs or ideological or traditional values, because the ninth house in Vedic astrology, for example, is connected with our father. But remember, in the ninth house in Hellenistic is the joy of the sun, one of the planets that represents the father. Insofar as our father, and I would extend this to say, or our mother or our parents in general, taught us this is what the universe is. This is, if you grew up in a religious household, this is what God is. This is what morality is. This is the political party we vote for. This is why. This is the groups of people that we think are very enlightened. These are the ones we think of as very ignorant. Like, all of that conditioning, intellectually, spiritually, morally, comes under question when Uranus enters the ninth house. I look back at my ninth house Uranus transit, and that transit coincided with the period of time when I was younger where my father was a minister, and during those 7 years was rapidly going through a universalization of his faith, which made him an immensely popular minister because he was saying things like, here's a Christian teaching, but isn't it interesting how close this is to a Native American teaching? Because his best friend at the time was a Native American he was spending a lot of time in exchanging ideas with. That was actually a very fruitful, promising period of my life, insofar as it was like my dad and my mom were just like, their faith was becoming more and more liberal and open and expansive. And now, as a kid, I was just sort of receiving that in a more passive way, but I was really young. When you're, let's say, 20 to 40, 20 to 60, and you get this going on, it's more likely that you're calling into question these things. Like my experience, I was so young, it happened sort of peripherally through my family, but nonetheless, it will happen. A revolution of what you believe to be true or what you understand as truth and how it guides or directs your life is going to go through this total renaissance and revolution. In Gemini, I would like to think that a lot of that will be led by what doubts you allow. And be careful not to jump to conclusions just because there's a doubt. For example, a very legitimate thing to do is to doubt the existence of God. I would say, be careful that just because that doubt is coming up in a really strong, meaningful way, that you don't immediately decide, now I'm an atheist. because Uranus will keep working. And it may be that you're actually an agnostic. It may be that further down the line, you're an animist, or you're a polytheist, or you're, it may, like, keep letting the doubt process. Just let it keep going. Hug the question mark, because sometimes, especially for Librans, who I think sometimes feel the weight of having to make a judgment or a decision, and it's like, it can be really paralyzing almost. Don't let the process of doubt make you feel like, oh, well, I better judge, evaluate, and land on the right thing here.
Yeah.
Does that resonate?
Yeah, that hit me.
Okay, good. Let's go forward to Scorpio. Guys, I'm going to go refill my water, and I'll be back to add my thoughts in. Just give me a second. But you guys go ahead.
Okay.
All right. So Scorpio risings. This is Uranus lighting up a place in your chart where I think you will feel comfortable, even though it's kind of an uncomfortable place sometimes. Because Uranus is bringing light to some of the darker spaces. Some of the eighth house to me feels very Pluto-like in a lot of ways. There's a lot of intensity in the eighth house. There's a lot of underground in the eighth house. There's a lot of stuff that's very deeply, primally, sometimes irrationally connected to something else in the eighth house. There can be also very deep and meaningful connections there. But I think Uranus comes in, and it's a little bit like bringing the flashlight into the cave. It's a little bit also of asking about who has the power and who has the sort of control of the light of your life. There's a movie that keeps coming to mind. This is a very dark example, but I think the Scorpios can handle it. It's a movie, I think it's called The Lighthouse. Came out a bunch of years ago. It's with William Dafoe and that guy from what's his name? Robert Pattinson, I think. Yes. And it had this like feeling of very they're arguing over who gets to tend to the light in the lighthouse. This might have this kind of feeling to it where it's just like, it's okay for you as a Scorpio to want to direct and have the hands on the wheel of your life. You need that in some sense. But also, where is the vision of your life coming from? Where's the guiding light of your life coming from? And you might find in the eighth house that there's some darker entanglements, or it's maybe better said, not to sound so like, scary about it, but like there's some more subconscious and unconscious entanglements that have been steering your life in some way. And that there's a sense of like, I have the vision of the light of my life. I am the one who directs the light of my life. I am the one who directs that vision. And when you do that, sometimes it can feel like you don't have to have as much control. You don't have to have as much sort of like the hands gripping on the wheel. There's a sense where you can relax, because I really feel at the heart of every Scorpio, deep, deep, deep inside of them, they really want to have a sense of trust that is so profound and solid that they can chill out. And I think that this is the beginning of that kind of transit. But yeah, the lighthouse has been in my head. Every time I've been thinking about it, that movie has been in my head, because it has that sense of like, who has the control of the light? Who has the control of the light in your life? And the answer is you. And Uranus will really help. It may have to break apart some more challenging bonds and some stuff under the surface, but you've got the right planet to do it. Either Uranus or Pluto will really help you do that easily. So those are my thoughts.
That was so good, Alex. That was so good. You reminded me when we were talking about the 12th house, the allegory of the cave came to mind. And you just mentioned cave. And I was like, oh yeah, the cave. I feel like it's relevant here too. Like we start to understand what the shadows really are. And in this case, it's in the context of like your engagement, like what you're in partnership with and who you're in partnership with. And the way you were speaking about control and power, I feel like is such an important thing to understand with the eighth house, for everybody to understand their eighth house. It's a place where like we want control and we tend to cling a little bit maybe. And Uranus coming through here is like, we can do things differently. We can do things differently. And what you were saying about, like, I really can't say much more than what you've already said, because I feel like you nailed it so well. But I think that point about like, you get to decide the terms of engagement and realizing that. And in fact, you can do that in partnership. I think that's another thing with the fact that we're talking about the 8th house is having a dialogue can help you figure that out. And you can be your own person and be in partnership. Like there's some new revelations about how to be in partnership, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, is okay, good. My mic's on. I thought for a second I was still muted. Okay, so one thing that's come up for me, and I didn't hear a good portion of Alex's, but one thing that comes up for me is Scorpios are people that tend to form very deep, very strong, very loyal emotional bonds at their best. Like that's like a superpower of Scorpios is if you and me are a thing, whether that's a business partner or like, then I'll go to the grave with it. You know, I feel like I would trust my life with a Scorpio, trust a secret with a Scorpio. However, if betrayed, right, there's no one I would want to mess with less, right, than a Scorpio if I've betrayed them. Because I just feel like they also, there's no sign that has a more like magical, deeper kind of karma around broken, betrayed bonds. And I don't even think it's like some Scorpios, of course, are going to be like vindictive, but I don't really think of it as a Scorpio thing as much as I think of it as Scorpios carry the magic of like the thing that seals the bond just so deeply is the thing that will make it excruciatingly painful if it's betrayed. So anyway, that's a setup to say that I think it's very possible that Scorpios are going to go into a period of actively questioning what to do about broken bonds. Like some bonds break instantly through betrayal. Like you cheat on someone in a marriage. Okay, Uranus enters your 8th house. That cheating is revealed. The separation, the breakup of a bond and a soul contract is very rapid, very sudden, very disruptive. Could I see something like that? Yeah, but it's kind of a worst case scenario. What about 7 full years of this, right? What does that do? Well, I think for Scorpios, it may refine, like let's say it begins with the betrayal of a friendship, a business partnership. There's something that breaks that bond or severs it. The next 7 years could be about refining the process by means of which you discern, is this right or not? Is this good or not? Is it trustworthy or not? Is it beneficial or not? Is it an equal exchange or not? So some Scorpios are so loyal, so deeply committed and attached, but with naturally all of us who are Scorpio risings will have, all of you will have Gemini in the 8th. There may be a process where you can get tricked a little bit sometimes. You may not see things clearly. You want to go deep, and that may leave you vulnerable to not always at the outset being discerning enough. If the emotional depth is there, well, then it's a yes, right? But sometimes that may allow for someone who has the emotional depth, but not the emotional commitment to show up. So anyway, my point is not to I don't want to be stereotypical with Scorpios, but I just think that soul contracts, what they mean, how they're made, which ones are worth it and which ones are not is going to be the subject of the next 7 years, very gradually over many different kinds of experiences.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure.
Okay. Let us move to Sagittarius. So I happen to know a Sagittarius, and I think it's interesting that as it's culminating, and they don't know a lot of astrology, that they have been actively saying, you know, I'm just not sure that I'm happy in this relationship. And I just thought, wish they knew a little astrology because they're days away from Uranus entering their 7th house. But when I asked the question, well, what is it that you don't feel totally like what is the source of the unhappiness, basically? And they said, well, I just don't, I don't feel like I'm having as much fun as I really want to be. And I feel like at which I want to meet someone else in a relationship should be more free-spirited and like adventurous and fun and kind of chemically combustive. And what I'm in is sort of stable, but not really fun. Like, yeah, that's Uranus entering your 7th. Like that would be like a textbook, right? So I didn't say anything. I said, well, I'm sure that you'll figure it out. And the only unsolicited advice I give, because we all do that for our friends, is, I said, one thing that I would pay close attention to is, if there's an impulse to make changes, either within the relationship or to leave the relationship itself over the summer, just honor and acknowledge those things rather than trying to push them away. Because Uranus entering the 7th house, really the only instruction is, maybe don't be super hasty or impulsive in a destructive way, like affairs that you think will solve a marriage problem, when really the revolution may actually lie in handling the marriage problem first. And if it needs to go, then you'll meet people jump to conclusions too quickly sometimes. But really the only thing you have to do is sit back and let the pot be stirred, and the changes that need to happen in relationships will happen, because Uranus in that 7th house is definitely not going to let you stay in things that are stuck, dry, boring, rigid. It just won't. So you don't really even have to do anything other than maybe don't be super impulsive and destructive with the changes you make. But otherwise, you can trust that this revolution will occur in its own time. It's like I got like fault lines that are going to create little karmic eruptions, and you don't even really have to worry about doing anything.
Go ahead, Alex.
We won't have our Libra fight now. No, you. No, I think I it's interesting with you. This always brings me back to what's the revolution? What's the revolution? For Sagittarius, it may be, oddly enough, with Uranus going into your 7th house, you get into a stable, committed relationship. For Sagittarius, that idea of I'm going to roam and I'm going to be forever, moving around, whatever. And then you meet someone and you're like, damn, wait a second. I don't want to do that anymore. Whoa. And it kind of confronts you a little bit, because Sagittarius can sometimes base their whole identity on, like, I'm the free roamer, I'm the doing this. And all of a sudden it's like, well, actually, I really want to settle down with this. That's kind of weird. And I don't know how to there's that contrariness of Uranus too. But I think also something I often say to people when they're having Uranus transits, either in the 7th house or to the 7th house ruler, something going on with the 7th house or something in the 7th house, is, do you really want to be free, or do you just feel like you need to be free at this moment? Or is it a feeling more than an actual need? Because, like you were saying, Adam, that hastiness with Uranus is so, especially Uranus and Gemini, is so like, well, it has to be this. It's this. It's this. And it's just being like, check out, it's a good time for a big breath and a mindful pause. Like, am I just feeling like, maybe I just need to go away with my friends for the weekend? Like, maybe I just need to, like, figure out something that allows me a little, like Sagittarius need to roam. Like, maybe I just need to roam a little bit. I need to have a day where I go hiking by myself or something like that. Or I just go hang out in the city by myself. Checking it against the impulse, checking the reality against the impulse is really important, I think, with this placement. But, who knows, whatever the revolution is for you, what's the thing you never thought, sometimes can be what Uranus is too. So, yeah.
Love that.
I'm thinking about the importance of communication, and, like, if Uranus is bringing in like a questioning, you do have to be discerning. Like, not every thought or feeling you have needs to be shared with your partner, but I feel like a good thing to do would be to be honest about those impulses, those thoughts, those feelings that you're having. If you're in a place where you're like, I feel stuck, or I feel, if it's a relationship that you're not wanting to, because sometimes you're like, okay, I'm done, I'm ready to walk away, and that's okay. But if you're really unsure, like, I think communication is a good idea, basically, for Sag risings. Gosh, there was something else. I lost it. I guess it wasn't that important. Communication, being honest. Oh, I know. You learn about yourself, I think, with 7th house transits. they're often like it's something going on with the other person, but it teaches you something about yourself as well. So, and that doesn't have to mean like separation. It could be my partner gets really into astrology and I find that I'm really into it now too. Or it makes me think about what I think about reality. Like it doesn't have to be, oh, we're breaking up. It can be there's something new here in the dynamic and it's helping me understand something new about myself.
I
Love that.
It's so easy with the relationship parts of the chart to go to the worst case scenario quickly, and that sometimes it is. You know, like Adam was saying, it can be, but it's also that's why I love when we all talk about it, because it's just like there's so many ways that these can flower and come up, especially specific to the sign. You know,
I would also say like something that Alex made me think of about the commitment might be the revolution. That got me thinking too. That I've had a few Sagittarius risings in my life. And what I love is there's an open-mindedness to Sagittarians for sure, but they ride through commitments for at least periods of time. You know, it's like, this is my belief or this is my conviction. The fieriness changes because it's mutable, right? But it's important. Wouldn't surprise me if things over the next 7 years, you know, the air can blow the fire around in a lot of directions. That's what the image that comes to my mind. And open-mindedness through other people and how they may open the mind of a Sagittarian to be more flexible or fluid or adaptive. I don't think of Sagittarians as lacking change, like they're changeable, but this could be something that really almost like questions the underlying need for conviction itself. Well, what does it look like to be committed without convicted? Or what, you know, like the fire piece of it can be like, I have a friend who I love, but who tends to get like angry for strips of periods of time about what they believe. Usually the things they believe are the things I believe, but they're angry about it. And I'm a Taurus rising, so I can't get angry about, you know, it's like different. But what does it look like to hold that conviction just as fiery, but not angry, flexible, fluid, mentally a little bit more? Like that might be. So anyway, I'm just sort of waxing poetic here.
Yeah.
All right.
Jupiter can get you sometimes, man.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, Hermes is pokes and prods at that. So Capricorn rising takes Gemini or Uranus into Gemini in the 6th.
Okay. I think this is pretty cool for Cap risings. So the first thing that comes to mind is breakthroughs with your health. And I thought about like understanding how your physical health is connected to everything else, like the mind-body connection, becoming very clear to you in a new way. So definitely, I think this could be a new health approach to your health, whatever that looks like. It could be like, oh, I'm intermittent fasting now, or I'm, there could be an element of competition too. Like I think about bodybuilding. Like there's something about like committing yourself every day. And it could be about health, or it could be about your work and what you're committed to there. But there's something that you're learning about staying dedicated to the process that you would not have been able to understand without that dedication, without showing up, you know, because I think all of us have had some kind of experience in our life where we were committed to something. Like I was a competitive dancer in high school and college, and you have to practice every day. You are not going to get better if you don't practice every day. And all of us have things like that in our lives. And I feel like what Cap risings can look forward to Uranus here by getting some level of understanding about something, some level of mastery that they would not have been able to access without that dedication and persistence. Let's see. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I keep thinking of Uranus here in the 6th house is like, if the crisis comes, there is a light to get you through it. There's a something, you know, there's sometimes Uranus, it's not like necessarily crisis. So I don't want to, again, that might be a word that feels a little bit too emphatic for this, but it's something like something that shakes you up a little bit in your routine. It shakes you out of something. And then there's like, yeah, but you were given a flashlight, a toolkit, you got support, you got people, you know? And it also might be helping you think, you know, as a Cap too, about, you know, the revolution for a Cap might be assistance. getting help from somebody else, knowing that like the sixth house always strikes me as a place that is a little bit like Dante going down into the inferno. It's like, you don't have to go alone. You don't have to go into these places that scare you alone. And I think that the tendency for Caps, I've said it on this podcast many times, is to think like, well, I have to do the noble journey on my own. I have to go through this on my own. I have to like do it on my own. It's like, yeah, but there's a lot of support you could go into for here. There's a lot of ideas that could come in. There could be a lot of technological developments, God knows, that could come in, especially around health, just in general with Uranus and Pluto leaps forward, I think, in health and technology in the next few years. So it's like, sometimes I think the feminine quality of Capricorn can really help out by leaning back and saying like, but I also need relationship. I need connection. I need rest. I need to maybe put down some of these burdens for a while, let somebody else carry them because I have to put my energy elsewhere. All things that could be really helpful for Cap rising.
If the sixth house is an Arta house, then it meaning material security, comfort, pleasure, kind of moving up the ladder as priorities in this house, then this is the house where we have to deal with what afflicts, blocks the security, comfort, ease, pleasure. And that's it's considered a part of the material reality that we live in, that competition for resources, the competition for pleasure in material goods and things are a part of life, or that hard work, labor, sacrifice, or that sickness, which sometimes blocks your ability to be secure or experience happiness. What I love about Uranus in this house, where so much of the sixth house is how do I work through obstacles that are a part of being alive in the material universe, Uranus can make it so much easier. Uranus can say, well, here's technologies, here's a workout plan, here's nutrition, here's a new understanding, here's a new technology. Maybe you are now finding a way in your office, if you own a company, to use AI to assist you in answering the zillion emails or whatever. I don't know, but Uranus in the sixth, one unexpected surprise could be the new ways in which you find to work through the daily hazards of life in the material universe. Can make it a lot easier. So now the opposite could be true in the sense of unexpected difficulties that come up, but necessity is the mother of invention. So Uranus in the sixth, it's like whatever constraints come up facilitate the inventiveness as well. All right. Move to Aquarius rising, where Uranus goes into Gemini in the fifth house.
Aquarius is you get to have fun. Fun. You can have fun, but Aquarian fun. When I was thinking about this one, that show, The Queen's Gambit, kept coming into my head. The lead from that show, I don't know if you guys, but this woman who's a massive chess champion, right? And she has this sort of innate ability to visualize and see 10 steps ahead. It's very Aquarius. It's the way you sort of organize information. Oh, it's an amazing show. I've watched it like 6 times. It's just awesome. And there's something about that here where it's just like, it's fun your way. It's fun for an Aquarius. It's fun for it doesn't have to be sometimes I think Aquarians and people who are ruled by Saturn often, get sort of prodded by their friends or people. They're like, go out, have fun. It's like, but what's fun for them is not necessarily the standard fun things. It's like, I want to get really involved in chess, or I really want to get involved in some kind of art project, or I want to get involved in some sort of community project that feels really meaningful for me, that really lights me up. This fifth house transit, it's like, what brings you fulfilling personal pleasure? And I think also, trining Pluto that has just newly moved into your first house, there is a question here, I think, too, of can you also feel what gives you fun and pleasure as opposed to what's conceptually fun and pleasurable? There's a way like air signs can be like, well, this is really fun and I can think about it. I can kind of keep it on this meta level. With Pluto, which is kind of a foreign energy to the air signs in a lot of ways, there's this sense of like, yeah, but what brings your body a sense of, yes, this is right, or no, this is wrong? What brings your body, is there a way you can embody that sense of fun? Is there a way that you can connect down more to those more primal spaces within you that can really sort of change the way you conceptualize how you feel enjoyment in the world. But it can be your way. It doesn't have to be some radical thing that you wouldn't want to do. It can be something just really committing to it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely that trine with Pluto feels loud thinking about this. I'm thinking about intentionally putting yourself in new contexts, new situations that you're feeling called to try. Like, I think trying new things is really important for Aqua risings. And I'm thinking too about, I don't remember which rising sign it was, but maybe it was Taurus, the idea of application. Maybe there's something about the transformation happening in the first house with Pluto that we can like test out with Uranus in the fifth. Like, I'm learning this thing about myself. I'm understanding this new unfolding that's happening within me. Let me go out and do something with that in the fifth. Let me go try this new thing I've been thinking about. Let me, whatever it is, but it's like making use of that energy. That's what I think about with, like, when we say creativity with the fifth house, that's what I think about. It's less about arts and crafts, although like maybe, and more about what do I do with this? Like, how do I make it manifest in the world in a way that feels good and right to me and that only I can do? And so I think it's a lot of experimentation, as it is with all of us, because that's really what Uranus and Gemini I think is all about in a lot of ways. But it's very personal for Aqua risings. And it's, I think, going to just sort of help refine that new sense of self that is coming through with Pluto in the first.
Love it. I have thought about that a lot because one of my daughters is an Aquarius rising. And I have this almost like premonition, and it's been, I don't know, like sometimes I get that as a parent, you know, and I'll often find that the exact images that come to my mind are never it's not those that actually end up occurring, but they're archetypal variants of what's going to happen. And that's part being an astrologer and also like the intuition I have with my own kid, you know. But the fifth house as a Dharma house is associated with the creative gifts and intelligence that you carry as a soul that's already yours. The third house, it requires cultivating, development in the second for certain kinds of things. In the sixth, there's a lot of work and sacrifice. But in the fifth, it's like, you know, there's some things that, you know, even if you, let's say you have to practice piano to become great at it, we all know that there are some people who come into this world, and even if they still have to practice, they're off to the races times 10 versus other people who aren't starting with some kind of innate gift. So the fifth really speaks to the innate dharma that we carry that has a creative purpose, that is attractive of good karma, or that we enjoy the results of. It's like, these are your best things that you have, that they're gonna come out of you like the most beautiful flowers in your garden. Uranus entering that house for Aquarians is therefore going to be about the rapid, exciting way in which your life is revolutionized, because certain creative gifts just come pouring out of you that are there. They're just a part of your being. I've been thinking about that a lot with my daughter, because I can sense she's got Pluto in her first house right now. I can see that Uranus trine, and I'm like, oh, wow, she's about to find something that's really her. And she's been like digging through the sandbox of life looking for it, you know? And so that's where the intuition comes from. I'm like, oh, she's about to find some part of her, and it's going to just explode very naturally. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think that's a metaphor for what all Aquarians are about to go through on some level.
Mm-hmm.
How old is she?
She's turning 7 at the end of July.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's so
she's
exciting.
a little Leo, you know, so she's got her Leo sun in the 7th house. One thing that I've noticed about that, by the way, is that she has a very clear way of seeing what she loves about other people. It's like, but where's that part of me, you know? Because it's got the sun in Leo in the 7th. So it's like, she just sees it so clearly when she admires someone, a teacher, a friend, but it's a little bit more obscure when it comes to her. Well, this is a transit. If any Aquarians out there struggle with that, you know, the sun is a natural opposite ruler of Leo, the opposite sign. Sometimes Aquarians search through ideas about themselves, but this is a transit that can take you from ideas about yourself into the expression of yourself.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. Last but not least, we have Pisces. Uranus entering your 4th house, a moksha house, a place of liberation, a place of release. I would say one of the major forms of karmic release that happens in the 4th house with Uranus there will involve the liberation of family karma. That could mean someone's getting married to a totally different type of person that breaks up a familiar pattern in the family because this person's from a different race or culture or background. Your sister comes out as gay. It like Uranus, David Bowie's entering your 4th house of home and family to help you take out some karmic baggage. You're going to have a yard sale, and it's going to involve all of the most interesting pieces of family artifacts that you just can't use anymore for whatever. It's time to let them go. I could also see this a revolution around home, property, family, living environment in all mundane ways, moving, buying property, selling property. Also, like, what are the interesting people or influences that are coming into your home and family? That's why I mentioned like a multi-ethnic, racial, different religious background, someone entering your family, multi-generational family household where there's mom and dad and grandparents all living together, so something that really shakes it up. So family karma at the roots, revolutionizing. Uranus down there, though, can almost like there are earthquakes that erode our foundations from time to time, and karmically speaking, and that there is a very like tower card kind of disruption of structures and foundations with Uranus entering the 4th. I don't think that they typically happen in one big moment, like something devastating. That typically doesn't happen. But the slow way in which a divorce in the family occurs, a death in the family, a mom or grandpa passes away. It's the ways that the foundations of what has been are being replaced by something new, something different. So that's what comes to my mind for Uranus in the 4th. But you guys let's hear what you guys have to say.
I'm thinking again about the trine to Pluto, because there's an interesting connection between the 12th and the 4th for me about the deepest parts of us, the hidden parts of us. Like definitely the 4th house, I think of family, and maybe some questioning about what family means to me. If we're gonna take that mercurial kind of like critiquing point into this, like maybe there's some new information that comes out and you're like, okay, well, does this situation feel safe? And that can go beyond family, right? Like what makes me feel safe in myself? Am I realizing that was maybe secret before, or unspoken, that now is out in the air and I can't unspeak it or I can't unknow it? Like I know it, now what? So I think there's a foundational change for Pisces risings right now, or over the next 7 years, I should say, with this transit. And I think all of us are going to be, to some extent, provoked by Uranus because, again, like we can't go anywhere new without there being change, and change can be uncomfortable. But I think there will be a lot more, like we're always better for it, right? And in the case of Uranus, I think about like knowing what you're going to learn with this transit is good. Like it's going to help you clarify something about what you need to feel safe and secure in your life.
One of the most beautiful qualities of Pisces, and I think it's what gives them so much imaginative strength, is the ability to conceptualize an abstract, whether that's towards the past or the future. There's an abstract nostalgic past, or there's a sort of like yearning for a future, but there can sometimes be an ambivalence about that because it's like it's not quite centered in always in reality. I think Pisces is always so much colored by the watercolor of the imagination in some way, and so Uranus comes into the 4th house, and I think it really asks about where do we go from here? Like what's this is now happening. There is something now happening in the clearing of the karma. One of the things I've learned about a lot of karmic healing in my 4th house is there can be the yearning for what was or what it should have been, and you have to go through that grieving process. But there's also like, where do we go from here now? Here's the spark that's going to allow us to move forward. And sometimes, I think we get very afraid of karma and family karma and ancestral karma, because there can be some tough stuff in families. But I have found when that stuff is really cleared and worked through, it really releases you. Like you can go to places you never thought you could go before. And that, the best quality of Pisces is that sort of like nostalgic, I can like, grief of the past maybe, or letting go of what once was, or what we wanted it to be, or what imagined it to be. But this sort of focal point of Uranus now in the 4th house being like, where do I go now that this is clearing and moving through? Where does it release me to go forward?
Nice. There we are. We did it.
Wow, that's it.
I know, guys. Oh. Thank you so much. I'm really sincerely, I'm gonna miss you guys.
We'll miss you too, but we'll still be here.
Yes.
Differently.
I want to tell you, of course, as always, how you guys can stay in touch. So for Dana, it is Self-Help Witch on Instagram, and posting astrological content on the regular. Find her there. selfhelpwitch.com to book a reading. Anything coming up you want to talk about, Dana?
Yeah, I actually just opened up something called Homecoming. So it's a spiritual reconnection space, digital sanctuary. I've got like a spiritual reconnection course in there, and then a community, and every other week we do live calls. And so that's like my core offer now. And I also have a like 4 reading bonus that comes with it. So you get a quarterly reading for a year when you join. So
that's a great deal. Love that.
I do my best. I try to make it. I want to support people. Jupiter and Cancer. Yeah. I'm trying to be very supportive. So I'm excited for that.
May you never, ever feel like an imposter ever again.
Ever.
Thank you.
You are anything but. You're an awesome astrologer. You've been an awesome contributor to this channel, and I wish you all the success. And I'm very excited that you'll be making bonus content for the channel. So can't wait to see what you guys cook up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alex, no longer on Instagram, but you can find him at alexamorosi.com to book a reading. And Substack, is it still The Subtle Universe?
Yeah, it's my Substack.
So check out the Substack, The Subtle Universe, to stay in touch with Alex and his work on the regular, and then alexamorosi.com to book a reading. Anything you have coming up you want to talk about?
I'm actually, speaking of Uranus moving into the 11th house, I've gotten back a lot more into energy work lately. So I'm actually combining energy work with readings now, and moving through stuff that's coming up in the reading or is coming up in transits. I'm also doing, I have my kitchen sink reading, which is probably where I'm going to start moving most of my work towards, which is basically I have your chart, I have cards, I have my intuitive faculties, and we just kind of work with what's coming up in whatever modality is there. So those are all available. I'm shifting the energy work thing on my website now so it'll be available when you guys see this. But yeah, I'm really excited to start combining a lot of the stuff that I do, and synthesizing it. Yeah.
Excellent. So there will be new co-hosts on next month. I'm very excited to introduce you. Alex and Dana will be also getting to know them, staying in our Slack community of content creators. And you will see bonus content coming from Dana and Alex on the weekends, probably starting in August or September, whatever they decide. I know they have the summer plans and stuff like that. So once that's taking place, you'll see it on the channel on a weekend. You'll see them pop up, and they will be with us for a full another year as additional like co-hosts of our weekends, which I'm really excited about.
Hey,
so are we?
Yeah. Yes. All right. Well, thank you everyone for hanging around and hanging out with us today. We really appreciate it. Big thanks. Give lots of love to Alex and Dana for their year of service. For Alex, a couple of years of service in the comment section. I know that it's really nice to send people off and into the next phase this way. So let's give them a lot of love, and we will see you all again next month. Take it easy, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.